Welcome, Derek, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Ancient Death, this first great album, Ego Dissolution, and more things related with the metal world in general. So we are starting by asking, how are you doing today? How is the band during the last, well, the band starts in 2021, so now this is your first album.
Yes, thank you for asking. I'm having a great afternoon. Thanks for having me on today to talk about Ancient Death. Um, this would actually be our fifth physical release. We've had an EP called Sacred Vessel. We've had a split EP with a band called Putridarium out of Germany. We were featured on a compilation zine called Noxious Ruin. We're on the fourth or fifth volume of that, and we also have a 2024 promo demo that
Mhm.
Necroharmonic Productions released prior to our full length, which is out now.
Okay, yeah, that is correct. That is correct. So, but this one, Ego, Dissolution is your first, well, your first full length, because the other ones like a small presentation, like
Correct.
splits, EP, demos, and these kind of things. So now, well, talking about more for this Ego Dissolution. So when did you decide to write songs for this one? Because I saw that the band since the creation of 2021, I saw that the band is continue composing music since 2022, 2023, 2024, and now this first album.
So I believe bits and pieces of the new LP were kind of in its infancies early on. Um, and then I think Jerry kind of added on some writing to that between when we started and now. But there were some pieces of those songs that were written actually before Sacred Vessel was even released. But we finally had the chance to go through them as a band and contribute our writing skills and structure to the songs. So I would say a good little chunk of the new album has had, its roots written well before the band even started.
Mhm. Oh, okay, amazing, amazing. So
Mhm.
now, during this composition process, many people say that you played like something like the new movement into the death metal. Or this not new movement because I was there in the in the 90s with a lot of experimentation with the with the death metal, a lot of bands. So that's what remind me a lot of bands from the 90s. So for this, do you consider that your music is death metal, or because in some medias, even for me, you are a touch for progressive death metal. It's not longer anymore like death metal with like Cannibal Corpse, like Deicide, Autopsy. It's not like that. It's more a different wave of the death metal or progressive death metal that it was a huge impact in the 90s.
Mm. That's a great question. I can answer that pretty confidently for everyone because we've talked about this ourselves
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit. We consider ourselves a death metal band, but I think we have our an identity. Um, so I think just the influences of what everyone has been brought up on, there's kind of no limitations. So, hey, if I have a riff that was inspired from a progressive band that I think is going to fit really well with this material, like I'm just going to put it in. Where I think, there's a lot of bands in metal, of course, like, they feel, hey, I have to be in this box because, this is the subgenre that we are. So to whereas we're really a little more open-ended when it comes to, worrying about compartmentalization. If that's a good way to describe that answer.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I understand for this one. Now let's talk about the influence of the band, because you mentioned it that you have sometimes influence for the progressive stuff, and now obviously the band in lean down to the death metal because it's completely death metal in some ways. So, but you have four members in the band. So how do you create the music with your influence? With, for example, you said that progressive. Do you have influence for the 90s, and do you have influence? And one thing I didn't know, this one, this ego for this solution, that you sound unique. That's one
Thank you.
thing that is it's not possible in this full of thunder releases. That's not possible.
And I think thanks for the compliment there. I think that that's something that we kind of wanted in a way. We wanted to do it the way we wanted to do it, and because there's a lot of bands that are great right now that I listen to. I listen to a lot of new bands as well as classic bands. Um, the other members have been brought up on classic death metal bands as well, such as, Death, Gorement. They also listen to progressive music like Camel. I mean, there's a very wide spectrum of influences within us. But what I can say for sure is that we just wanted to do it our way. And I think that's most important. So like, Jerry's like heavily influenced on like trippy sounds of Pink Floyd, for example, but he's not wanting the band to sound like that genre, but just using elements of things that he enjoys and putting it into death metal riffing and death metal style is it's just kind of something that because I want to, not because we're told by this fan base that it's got to be this way or it's got to be that way. And I hope that's what makes this album stand out a little bit from, the typical kind of rolling out of everything that's kind of happening right now. So
Okay, okay. Another detail that I happen, well, that captured my attention about for this ego dissolution is the cover art. Because when I see for the first time the cover art, I really like it. The cover art's a great one.
it
It's a cover art for the 90s. But one thing that captured my attention is that this cover is like the evolved part of the cause of death from the obituary. Because that's when obituary released that album, it's impossible to forget that cover art. So now
for
when I see your cover art, it's like the same way because there's a tree, there is a body, and there's eyes. Just the castle at the end is a different one. That's the only thing. But if we relate to the trees, the eyes, the tree, and the body on the main scene, so related with this concept of the cause of death from obituary. So in this case, the artist that is Megan LeMay has an inspiration for the cause of death, or perhaps do you say so we just have this kind of influence for the cause of death, and please can you do this something like this? How was it the process to create this cover art?
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people might be surprised at the answer to this. We've answered this quite a bit lately, which is fine. I'm sure it's to be expected. So, fun fact for people in South America, especially that, when it comes to the original art, that was originally supposed to be the cover for Beneath the Remains.
Mhm.
And I not people do know that that's not new news, but it is a fun fact that that wasn't originally going to be Cause of Death.
Mhm.
And it was actually a cover from an H.P. Lovecraft novel. It was
Mhm.
cover art on a from Michael Whalen.
Mhm.
But Megan LeMay did not intentionally take that inspiration from the Cause of Death album. But what she did was she did take inspiration from classic death metal covers. And
Mhm.
because she's a very niche artist, she knows her metal and she knows when it comes to influences, she has a way to incorporate them. Like if you look at, she did some work for Mobosidad for some shirt art years back, and
Mhm.
you could say kind of looks like Moyen, for example. So she's being herself artistically, which I can definitely speak for, but she knows the aesthetic. So I could say, hey, she probably took Jerry's ideas from his lyrics because they had a lot to do with the eyes and the body, and put them into the art based on iconic covers. And it just kind of happened that way. So I mean, we're happy that it looks and it has that aesthetic, and we're not, we stand by that art 100%. So, but that would hopefully explain some of that questioning there.
Hmm. Oh, okay, 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 okay. So now, these new albums are releasing with 1,000 records in the world. I said that this, for me, is one of the few of them are in these last 20 years that sound amazing and sounds different. Well, we related with it sounds like the Blood Incantation, like Inanna, another kind of death metal bands that appears in the recently 10 years or 20 years. So for this information and for you, you said that the music is just inspirational, is just your way to do this kind of death metal. So, do you think that ego dissolution will be like a huge stone in the future?
It seems like I hope so. I mean, I definitely feel that it's a special record. We did something. We were onto something, which is really a great thing because it's hard to do in this time. Because everything's really been done already. and we're not intentionally looking to be different or to be unique. I think that the atmosphere, some of that, and the cosmic style of what we call what we're doing, and Blood Incantation does some of that. I understand, so I can see the correlation there. They're good friends of ours, of Jerry's as well, and they all kind of started around the same time when Jerry and Ray had a band, and they toured together in the earlier form when Blood Incantation formed. So there's a little bit of a correlation there, but I feel like we have something in its own entity, and I hope we can expand on that, continue to be ourselves, and not try too hard to make it different.
Hmm.
If that
Okay,
makes sense.
okay, okay. So, and for this one, talking about now the promotion for this new album, what kind of promotion do you have for this ego dissolution? Perhaps you'll embark in tours, perhaps you'll embark more videos, who knows, playthroughs, who knows, because I know the playthrough is now like the movement to present videos for Nason. And
Yeah.
also, perhaps already you're working on a new album for Ancient Dead. So, what kind of plans do you have for Ancient Dead and obviously ego dissolution?
Oh, right now, I think we're just enjoying the release. We all have different projects as band members as well. Like, so right now, Jerry's on tour with Atheist, doing an amazing tour. I'm doing some other things as well very soon. So Ray, he does a few different bands, but we're gonna do definitely some summer shows to promote the release. Maybe a mini small touring in the summertime this year, and then I would think we're going to get back to maybe the writing process of some new material in the fall and winter. Right now, that's kind of all we're doing at the moment.
Okay, okay. Now, and talking about now your enter to to Profound Love Records. So how was the enter to what Profound Records all the time brings good records. I mostly have all mostly all whole records in CD because I love. I purchased the CD from you from them. So for this, how was your enter to Profound Love Records? One of the underground labels, great underground labels for this.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm really grateful that we got a chance to do this album with Profound Lore, especially at this stage. Is just such a institutional name he's built for that label. And it was, very easy to do, very smooth. Everything kind of went the way it should. Um, and we had offers before. It was really hard to kind of choose, in a sense, because everything was happening so quickly before we went with Profile Lore. But I feel that he has a lot of staying power with his bands, and we all agreed, as well as the style that we had very much fit with Chris and Profound Lore as well.
Mm. Okay. Now talking about other kind of topics in the metal world, especially because we spoke about the album, the composition, the cover art, and the future plans for an Ancient Death, and now relating more questions to in general for the metal world. As you can see now, the world is has a lot of new records. Each weekend we have like 50, 60 releases per weekend. And also with these 50 or 60 piece releases per weekend, we have a lot of sound that like the standardization of the sound because all the band sounds great, sounds amazing, great musicians. It's not like the 80s or the 90s anymore. When you
Mm,
find 10 records and 6 sounds amazing and 4 that didn't sound amazing. It's some people consider like jewels for some people, but for in the real time, it wasn't. It was that records it weren't
I
jewels,
agree.
just a crap at that moment.
Yeah.
That's the way it was. So for this, so how is your opinion about now the old records? Sounds amazing, extreme great musician because this is not for the heavy metal for the thrash metal. It's mostly for the extreme music because the extreme music
Yes.
brings this kind of technique, this kind of standardization of the sound in extreme music.
Oh no, 100%. I'm really glad you brought this up. Because I mean, I don't want to sound like somebody who bashes modern tools like triggers and working with a click, because those things are very useful for bands. And I think there's a lot of bands that use modern production to make their stuff sound great. I'm a little older than the rest of the band. So I came from a place in death metal where I did death metal in 1989 and 1990. I was playing in bands, so playing death metal in bands. So the way it was done then was different, and we brought a lot of those elements into the production of the album. So we're just tracking drums and guitar together live. No assisted tracks, no triggers, no click tracks to make it sound like an older era. And that was important to us. We wanted, and it wasn't because we don't like any of that. It's just lately I haven't heard bands do that in a long time.
Mhm.
And it's the recipe for classic death metal that people, they always love the retro. They want to hear the demos. They want to hear the original records from the classic bands. So we wanted to make a record that had that classic production. So
Hmm.
we did it that way, and we're really glad we did.
Oh, okay, okay. And now with this situation of the sound, the standardization of the sound, you can see now the live presentations for the producers is just using just plugins, using just direct to the consoles. Not longer anymore we are the producers are using amps to the live presentations. Mostly of people are like the old bands, just playing with amps, playing because they have the resources to play with this. But with with the technology, especially now, you can see that now the producers are using less people to put a show, just two or one people using it. So, what's your opinion about now these over the world presentations?
It's an interesting question. I think I mean, it depends on the band. Depends on the people using these things. I mean, there's some great bands in South America. I'm a very fan of a lot of South American bands. Like I listen to a lot of bands from Chile, Peru. Mortem's one of my favorite bands, like in death metal.
Mm-hmm.
So but everyone seems to be using different things in like amp modelers or whatever it is. And for me, I come from a place that had the classic stuff, the basic, tube amplifiers, old school drum set, double bass, chain drive pedals, but I have recently switched to a direct drive pedal because I'm, getting older, and you use a little bit less power on those and just learning how to use some of the newer things. So, but it can sound sterile for some people. Let's face it. But I think if someone really knows what they're doing, it comes down to the performance, and that's what really is the true test to have for what makes a band sound. Give it that classic, good feel. So.
Okay, okay, okay. And also, also we're returning to the ego, the solution for this.
Okay.
Well, we can see that this album received a great reviews around the world because I saw we put a high score on our web also, and I
Thank you.
saw another reviews, and I said the people when they listen in social media puts a great album, revelation of the month, the year, etc., etc. A lot of comments, good comments. So how do you take this good, this album well received by around the world, and also for this one? There's right now created like a little anxious for the second album because a lot of people expecting a second album since this first record, and that's completely so. For this first record, you will feel this kind of pressure to not disappoint all these good reviews.
I'm very surprised. I knew it was going to be good based on my own ears, based on our chemistry as a group. We have a really good chemistry. It's just really easy to make music with Ancient Death. So doing a second record, I don't think is going to be a difficult task for us. But with those expectations, it can be a make or break thing. I think that second record can be a very crucial point for a lot of listeners, keeping interest. So it's definitely a challenge for sure. But I just, I want to say on behalf of us to thank everyone around the world that has bought this record. That the initial pressings were all sold out. The second pressings are coming in soon for people who want vinyl. Any day now, the second pressings are coming in. So just hang tight; they'll be here. It was I did not expect the first pressings and the pre-orders to sell out the way they did. I don't think the rest of the guys and girls did either. So thank you so much, everyone, for your support.
Mm, great, 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 Derek. So we are close to this interview, Derek. And for this one, what's your opinion about now for these over releases? As we spoke a few minutes ago about these over releases per weekend, because we have like the 50 or 60 releases per weekend. So what's your opinion about these over releases per weekend? It's not like anymore like the 80s or 90s when you have 60 releases, but in 1, 2 years. Now we have 60 releases per weekend, though that's impossible to follow now. So for some people, thinks that these over releases are like the I like this too saturate for the scene, and for the other people, this will be just a great. This is great because we have a more to stuff to hear. And what's your opinion about this?
Well, my opinion is kind of like the first thing that comes to mind is I'm kind of amazed because I lived through the '90s, so to see metal just kind of drop and become almost extinct for a while. I mean, a lot of people kept it going, and we all know, luckily bands like Angel Corpse, there was a lot of bands that kind of just trudged through the late '90s and really are amazing that did that. But um, it's amazing. I just keep my ear to the ground. Like if something there's a standout release, I notice it, and just kind of talk amongst friends. More word of mouth. I rely a little more on word of mouth with friends in the scene than anything else when it comes to
Mhm,
bands and good records.
mhm,
Uh, and that's just kind of the way it was back in 91, 92.
mhm,
Hey, this band's coming out with this. I heard this. That seems to be the best way for me to filter the
mhm.
oversaturation of bands these days. Just by hearing from a bandmate, hey, I heard this album the other day. It's pretty killer. New Titan Blood seems really good. Oh, okay, I'll check it out on the way home from work or something. So stuff like that seems to be kind of using older ways to keep up with music. I kind of hold on to those.
Great, great. Well, Derek, we arrived to the sad moment of this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me. This record, Ego Dissolution, is a great one, a great start, a great first album from the band. I expecting the second one soon. I hope so. So, and for this, perhaps we want to add something to your new Latin American fans and obviously Metallirum followers.
Just look out for some summer show dates soon. Look out for the second pressings. They should be in at Profile Lore shortly. And if anyone, I know a lot of people have been asking for more vinyl, so just keep checking for updates on our social medias, on Profile Lore's social medias. And once again, thank you for supporting Ancient Death and our style of cosmic death metal. Thank you.